Before the roar of jet engines and the flash of missiles, there was the thunder of guns, the thunder of battleships. They were the greatest weapons of their age, vast steel fortresses that carried nations' pride across the world's oceans. In the Pacific, two powers would test those giants to their limits: the United States and Imperial Japan. This is the story of their rise, their battles, and their fall, the end of an era when battleships ruled the sea. Long pause. At the dawn of the 20th century, the world believed in battleships. They were symbols of power, floating embodiments of industrial might and national prestige. When Japan shocked the world by defeating Russia in 1905, it was their battleships, sleek, disciplined, and modern, that led the charge. By the 1930s, both Japan and the United States were racing to build fleets that could dominate the Pacific. Each ship was more than just a weapon. It was a declaration of destiny. In Tokyo, naval planners envisioned a decisive clash, the Kantai-Kessen, a single overwhelming battle that would determine control of the ocean. In Washington, the U.S. Navy believed in deterrence, that the mere sight of battleships like the California, Arizona, and Nevada would keep the peace. Both nations prepared for war without admitting it. Neither understood how the coming storm would change warfare forever. Long pause. Distant planes fade in Sunday, December 7th, 1941. The morning was calm at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, the American Pacific Fleet resting at anchor. Then, out of the clouds, came the sound of hundreds of engines. Japanese aircraft, launched from 6 carriers, descended in 2 waves. Their mission: destroy America's battleships before they could ever leave port. At 7:55 a.m., the first bombs fell. The Arizona was struck by an armor-piercing bomb that detonated her forward magazine. The ship exploded with a flash that could be seen for miles. Over 1,000 men perished in seconds. Nearby, Oklahoma rolled over. West Virginia and California sank at their moorings. 8 of the fleet's battleships were hit, 4 went to the bottom. The attack killed over 2,400 Americans, the most devastating strike ever delivered against the United States Navy. The Japanese believed they had secured victory. But beneath the burning oil and twisted metal, the U.S. Navy's resolve was hardening. And in the wreckage of Pearl Harbor, a new kind of war was beginning. Long pause. Fire crackle fades out. In the months that followed, America rebuilt. Shipyards ran around the clock. Salvage crews raised sunken hulls. The old West Virginia, the California, and even the battered Nevada would fight again. But the truth was becoming clear. The age of air power had arrived. At Coral Sea and Midway, aircraft carriers fought for the first time without ever seeing each other. The mighty guns of the battleships stayed silent, too slow, too far away. At Midway, Japan's carrier force was shattered. 4 carriers sunk in a single day. The Yamato, Japan's new and secret super battleship, was present but distant, serving as Admiral Yamamoto's flagship. She never fired a shot. Still, neither side was ready to let go of their great ships. The battleships, once the queens of the fleet, became the guardians, providing fire support, escort, and anti-aircraft defense. And in the dark nights of the Solomons, they would roar back to life. Fade to night battle ambience, waves and distant gunfire. In late 1942, control of the Solomon Islands meant control of the Pacific's lifeline. Guadalcanal became a graveyard for ships, a place sailors called Iron Bottom Sound. The fighting was brutal and close. Radar was still new, and most battles took place at night, when confusion reigned. Destroyers and cruisers traded shells at point-blank range. And then the giants joined in. On the night of November 14th, the battleship Washington, guided by radar, engaged the Japanese Kirishima. It was one of the few true ship-to-ship duels of the war. In less than 10 minutes, Washington's 16-inch guns found their mark. Kirishima was left burning, her decks twisted and broken. She sank before dawn. It was the last major gun duel between battleships in history. After that night, the big guns would mostly speak to land, not to each other. Long pause, fade to industrial hammering, both nations pressed on with their greatest designs. In secret Japanese yards, engineers constructed the largest warships ever built, Yamato and her sister Musashi. Each displaced over 70,000 tons, their armor thicker than anything afloat. Their 918.1-inch guns could hurl a 3,200-pound shell over 25 miles, farther than the horizon itself. Japan built them to restore balance against America's growing might. But even as these giants took shape, their purpose was already fading. For every Japanese battleship launched, America built a dozen carriers, cruisers, and destroyers. Across the Pacific, the U.S. launched the Iowa-class, fast battleships capable of 33 knots, armed with radar and some of the most advanced fire control systems ever seen. They could hit a target over the curve of the Earth with deadly precision. The race for naval supremacy was still on, but it was no longer about gunfire alone. Fade in low-tension music, by October 1944, the U.S. Navy had reached the Philippines. Japan saw it as their last chance to turn the tide. They launched Operation Shogo, a complex plan to ambush the American fleet at Leyte Gulf. It would become the largest naval battle in history. At the center of it all were the Yamato and Musashi. Their mission: sail through the sea beyond sea and crush the U.S. landing forces. American carrier aircraft struck first. Dozens of bombers descended in waves. Musashi was hit again and again, torpedoes tearing open her hull, bombs ripping through her decks. Still, she fought on, refusing to die. Only after 19 torpedoes and 17 bombs did she finally roll and sink. Out of more than 2,000 crewmen, over half went down with her. For Japan, it was a devastating blow. For the U.S., it was a grim preview of the battles yet to come. Long pause, shift to calm, sea wind. In 1945, the war was closing in. Japan was surrounded, its navy shattered, its cities burning. Yet one symbol remained: Yamato, the pride of the Imperial Navy. She had spent most of the war waiting for a battle that never came. Her guns fired in anger only once, during the defense of Okinawa. Then came her final mission, Operation Tengo. She would sail south with a handful of escorts, carrying only enough fuel for a one-way trip. The plan: to beach herself on Okinawa and fight until destroyed. American forces detected her within hours. Hundreds of carrier aircraft swarmed the formation. Torpedoes struck one after another, listing her to port. Bombs tore through her decks. At 2:23 p.m. on April 7th, 1945, a massive explosion split her in two. The greatest battleship ever built was gone, taking over 3,000 sailors with her. In that moment, the battleship age ended forever. Long pause, silence, then soft strings fade in. When the guns fell silent, the world was different. Aircraft carriers and submarines had taken command of the seas. The massive guns that once decided empires became museum pieces. But the legacy of the battleships endures. They taught us the limits of size, the cost of pride, and the speed of change. Their crews showed courage under impossible conditions, men who fought for duty, honor, and survival on both sides. Today, the Missouri rests at Pearl Harbor, her bow facing the sunken Arizona. It is a silent conversation between two ships, one that began the war and one that ended it. Together, they tell the story of an age when nations believed that steel could decide destiny. The battleships of World War II were monuments to human ambition, powerful, proud, and doomed by progress. They remind us that every empire, no matter how mighty, must someday yield to change. And though their guns have long fallen silent, their echoes still roll across the Pacific, carried by the wind, remembered by history.